Welcome to The Real Review, sponsored by PickTalk and Parametric Studios, where you get some of the latest happenings, real thoughts, and real perspectives in the world of film and television. Today, there's just no time to die. But was there enough for us to enjoy Daniel Craig's final outing as James Bond? That and more on today's episode of The Real Review, so stay tuned.
Welcome to The Real Review.
Never got around to it, and then my internet crap. So,
oh, sorry.
This is the only one I've seen in its entirety.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Like of just the Daniel Craig?
Just the Craig, yeah.
Okay. Do you have like a top? I don't know, top 3, top 4.
Whatever one's Pierce Brosnan is in.
Pierce Brosnan. Okay, yeah. The one where he surfs. I can't think of that.
Everybody's just giving 1-star review. Right?
Yeah.
Those are ultra bad.
What are some top ones? Do you have
my favorite all-time Bond?
Yeah. There's so many now.
Is License to Kill.
Okay.
My favorite Bond is Timothy Dalton.
Okay. All right.
But
that's not the
that
common
one.
Yeah.
That one in particular, I just thought had a great story. Really did something different with the character. You know, falling out with whatever British agency and just going rogue.
Yeah,
it was awesome.
Yeah, but, I think my favorite is Goldeneye, which is probably a dumb one to say because it's probably
one Bronson.
Yeah,
the best James Bond video game too.
Absolutely, yeah. It wasn't because of that, but it definitely was a great game. The reason for that one was just I think the memories that surround it. It's just that time in my life where it's like I was just starting to discover more and more of like cinema and everything. Not that it's like high caliber cinema or anything like that. And you go back and watch it now, and it's like it just feels very like 90s kind of vibe.
Well, don't feel bad. Like nobody loves Timothy Dalton. I think he's the best James Bond. So
he was my first, I believe, James Bond that I saw. And he was my first, like, I felt like he was the perfect James, because there's all this talk about, you know, James Bond character needs to be this balance of like suave sophistication and like rage and fighting. And I felt like there's been like Sean Connery was more on like he's just a gruff old man kind of, but he's kind of got a debonair look. And then, you know, Roger Moore to me was too like, oh, Roger Moore. And I'm not going to go through all of them, but like Pierce Brosnan had a good kind of blend to me for some reason. He kind of hit all the notes. It's kind of like everybody's probably got their own pick on Spider-Man. Right. Like, who's your favorite Spider-Man?
Yeah. The James Bond, there's that charismatic element to it, but then there's like the action. It's like but none of those actors except for Timothy Dalton somehow like conveyed that
absolutely
ability of like this is a man of action, you know. Except for Daniel Craig, which brings it all the way. That opening sequence in Casino Royale, that black and white little montage, not montage, but just kind of flashback scene to his first kill. I was like, I'm in 100%. That high contrast black and white. Oh, I loved it.
I can already tell that I'm like woefully underprepared for this. All my James Bond knowledge comes from James Bond Jr.
Shaking, not stirred. It's just like,
I'm like the 90s kid that was like, oh, James Bond Jr.? That's probably a cool cartoon.
What you can do is you can try and throw James Bond clips out throughout the rest of the podcast. Just try and get the zingers prepared. Just write out a list.
I like hearing how passionate Dave is about Casino Royale. I've never seen that one.
Oh, okay.
They're all good. Like I said,
I wouldn't say that, but I agree that
they're probably all good in their own way. There's probably not a bad one.
I had a tough time with Quantum of Solace. Okay. I had a tough time with Quantum, and there's reasons for that.
But the last couple, like Skyfall and was Spectre the last one?
Yeah, Spectre was the one just before this. Yeah,
I like how they capture that essence of the like 60s vibe, but in a modern age. The villains were just those ultra villain, you know. Javier Bardem was just incredible.
Yeah, I
like him for that. Same with the new one.
Yeah,
I just thought, God, I'm gonna butcher his name. Rami
Malek. Yeah, I believe it's Rami Malek.
I mean, just the set designs, everything in it, just
man
had that.
They give him his moment too in the movie, like that. I love, there's 3 types of villains, but I love the villain where they just like they lay it all out for you, and you're like, I kind of see where he's coming from. You know, that's just my favorite type of villain.
We'll have to talk about that because that was probably one of my weaker parts of the movie.
Oh, really?
I felt like he did a tremendously good acting job. Like, I'm not attacking his ability in the role. It was really just the mindset of the villain.
Mm-hmm.
Made very little sense to me.
Mm.
At the beginning, it made sense, and then it got to a certain point. I was just kind of like, all right, well, we just need to have a villain. And so you're, because you've been so important to what's happened. He kind of was a character that almost seemed like if this was the real world, he would basically just like have done what he did in the very beginning, like the first half of the movie, and then he'd be done.
Mm-hmm.
Like that would have made a lot more sense to me.
Mission accomplished.
Without spoiling things too much at this point. I liked him in the role though.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of wish they'd given him a more, because he took a turn from like, this was just like a sort of a revenge tale type thing to like, which isn't really a spoiler, to like all of a sudden he's just a maniac.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, so yeah.
But so that's my point was I like when it's a maniac and then they say what their plan is or why they are that way.
Yeah.
And you kind of just have that moment where you're like, if I was like 10% more evil, I would totally be on board with this guy.
Yeah.
Right.
I get that.
It's even in the commentary. It's in the trailer, so I don't think it's a spoiler. But when he's like, "I just do what you do. I'm only more efficient."
Yeah.
You know, like I agree, man. Yeah,
He was on the cusp of being relatable to me. Like he wasn't as relatable as I've seen some villains get, but he was on the cusp there. And I think it was literally just because I didn't get why he was doing what he was doing.
Right.
It was a motivation thing, I guess. But we can talk more about that when we get to spoiler talk. I will say, as far as like the Daniel Craig films, this is definitely one of the top. So for me, it was Casino Royale is the highest one, just because it did so many good things and new things. It introduced Daniel Craig, and it's rewatchable. Like I can rewatch that one, and every single time I see it,
yeah.
I'm just
Mad Mikkelsen's crying out.
Yeah.
Ooh,
it's just great.
He's
and
just
then
awesome in that.
right under that is Skyfall to me. That one just, I felt like if Casino Royale was like the rough edges of a new style of Bond, Skyfall to me was like the perfection of that. It was like the way of bringing all those elements together, because the thing that we'd had with James Bond films prior to Casino Royale was everything got really just cheesy and silly and goofy. Everything was about the gadgets and, you know, the names of the girls he's going to, you know, hook up with, and the ridiculousness of like the, you know, oh, we're going to drill this laser through the moon and shoot it into Tucson and to a mirror farm that's going to, you know,
that
heat up
technology exists. Okay.
I'm sure it does. Unfortunately, it does exist, but it just got so ridiculous. I mean, we had literally James Bond doing surfing, like in one of the movies, you know,
how many ways can you think of? We have to get his shirt off.
Yeah.
Right.
Something like that. Yeah.
Surfing. Great excuse.
But so it's like they kind of like run the role of being James Bond films, and they had just gotten so tongue in cheek and stupid to me. And so when we relaunched with Daniel Craig, I was like, this is perfect. It's fitting. It's a new generation's Bond. Then they had some issues, specifically with Quantum of Solace. They ran to the writer's block. So the Writers Guild went on, not block.
Was that
the
during
Writers
strike?
Guild, went on strike. Yeah. And that really affected the film. I think based upon all the notes I've read about the production, they literally tried to just use what they had in the can, as far as like what was already written, the basics of the story, and then kind of just run with it. And you saw that in the movie. It was like, what? Why? Oh, wow, that just happened. And then it's jumping around. And then we had the high point of Skyfall. And then the last one was, I felt like Spectre wasn't bad. It just kind of didn't do anything new to the series. It didn't really introduce anything different. It was kind of just like people that I heard really like the original iterations of James Bond that were more tongue-in-cheek and more silly. It was kind of like a return to form for them in a lot of ways. But I don't know what a lot of really strong James Bond fans feel about this one. You know, like I wouldn't call myself a diehard James Bond fan.
I love the franchise, all of them really, except for the Pierce Brosnan, but I've never read any of the books.
You gotta give my guy Pierce a little bit of credit. I mean, he's good.
It's to each his own. Yeah, for sure. Like you're saying, you like it for certain reasons.
Yeah.
Those just never like spoke to me. I say instead of saying I didn't like it, but I've always enjoyed them. Just good, fun action movies. I like the character. I like the idea behind them. I like it.
Yeah. Let me, so I forgot to give the synopsis for it. I'll give that real quick. So James Bond has left active service. his peace is short-lived when Felix Leiter, I think it's Leiter, isn't it? Felix Leiter, an old friend from the CIA, turns up asking for help, leading Bond onto the trail of a mysterious villain armed with dangerous new technology. I try to ask this every time, and just because I'm curious, it's like, what this helps inform, I think, where you're at with the film. What were some expectations? Like, did you have any expectations going into this one?
Zero for me.
Yeah.
I try to stay away from it, but when you hear about some type of, wokeness rumblings in the internets, they're always
you never really
right,
know.
half wrong.
You never know. Yeah.
And so, it's real easy for me. Just zero expectations. I just wanted a coherent story, decent action, and the trailers looked like it was going to deliver. So I was like, I'm already on board.
Yeah.
And I just want to see more movies. I'm just so glad we're at the top of that roller coaster where all those delayed films are just going to start coming out one by one. So this one I was really looking forward to for quite a while. I don't know how long was it delayed.
I think
at
over
least a year.
Over a year. Yeah. I don't remember the exact time frame for it, but yeah, it was pushed back and pushed back. Oh, how about you, Ross?
Well, my expectations, I know a lot about Bond, even though I don't watch the movies. And so I just assumed, he would have a mission he has to do. And then there'd be a woman who they would team up, but then she'd betray him. And then he'd be mad, but then they'd fall in love.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like my knowledge of James Bond. So I went in there assuming that was the storyline. And I was surprised and pleasantly surprised that it was different.
So it went above your expectations.
Yeah. And not just story-wise, like the filmography was cool. And
yeah, this one they ran the gamut of traveling. They went to a lot of different places, which I thought all
the hallmarks of a good Bond film.
Yeah.
I did have to laugh because a lot of times I'll see a movie and in the bottom right they'll always put the location whenever they shift, and they didn't do this on this. And all of a sudden I was like, wait, I could actually use that this time. Like the one time they didn't do it.
You needed it, yeah. Where the heck are you, Bond? Yeah.
So based on this, would you have interest in watching the other ones?
Yeah, I at least want to go back. Well, and that's my other part of my expectations. From what I understood about James Bond is you don't have to see all of them. And generally, I still think that holds up. Obviously, this one, they expected you to at least see the one before.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead.
Yeah, Eva Green's character was in Casino Royale. That's when she dies.
So they want you to see all four.
Yeah, Vespa. Yeah.
Vespa.
Right.
That would be the only one I'd say watch.
Spectre. Yeah. I had no idea
what
was going on.
Right.
Yeah, so watch Casino Royale and maybe Spectre. That's about it.
I understand why they did it. In today's world, you want as many connections and to put out as many movies as you can. I mean, look at Marvel, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's my fault for not seeing the other ones.
The Quantum of Solace was the first one that was a direct sequel to a Bond film. Like they had never done that before. It had always been, like you said, very standalone. And there was always like the reoccurring, like, here's the Gizmo section and here's the section with the girl and and it was always like that. And then this was the first one where they were like, no, we're going to do. And again, it was kind of like that reinvention of, and I was excited for it, the reinvention of the style of James Bond films. But it failed so hard because it was such a bad move in my mind. I mean, for me, it failed so hard. And I think a lot of people would probably agree, though. It didn't live up to at least the hype or the expectations coming out of especially such a good film as Casino Royale. But the story does continue throughout all four of the films, or all five of the films, I guess now, until where we're at now. I think it's open enough that you can get the general idea and the general sense of like, oh yeah, there's this like weird organization that exists where there's like these bad guys named Spectre and they've had some run-ins with Bond, and like you can get that. But it definitely helps because his character has, out of everything with the story moving forward, I think it's the most to say that his character really has moved on and moved forward as a character throughout all five of these films. Right. And I think that's kind of what, like when I stepped back from this film, at first when I've been going back and forth, when I first saw it, I had very low expectations for it just because of the delays and all the gripe and everything I'd been hearing about potential production issues. And because I've had mixed experiences. It's gone one way or another. Like I love this one, but I hated that one. And so when I went and I saw it, my expectations were kind of low. And so it went above where my expectations were at, definitely. But there was definitely still a sense of just like a bad taste in my mouth. And I think what it is without spoiling it, I think it's just kind of like a very bittersweet way to wrap up this 5-film iteration of James Bond. You know, we've been with him since I saw Casino Royale so many years back, and it doesn't have that rewarding same feel as like Endgame did, where it's like it's going to continue on and there's, you know, moving stories. And yeah, some people have left and some people, but this one was just so like done. And so I'm not going to say that's a bad thing, because for some people, I think they might see that and think, yeah, that was very fitting and nice. I mean, there's a lot of reasons for why I think they did what they did, and we can talk more about that in the spoiler talk, but it just kind of left me with an overall just like, do I really need another kind of downer feel right now? Like, I could use a win. Like, give me a win, you know? Right. And James Bond, you haven't done that to me.
Yeah, and James Bond's always been like a guaranteed win.
Yeah,
right?
It's just like, he's not going to... The story's only going to go so far, but he's always going to win and save the day. He's always going to do this. And so, anyway, any other thoughts with that kind of... I'd like to talk just more generally about the film if we can, and then
before
we'll move into spoiler talk. Yeah,
about
any things you really did or didn't like.
Blow your minds here.
Okay.
So... if anybody has listened in, to back up a little bit, out of the three of us, I'm the least.
Myself?
Yeah. Hold on to something.
Oh no, jeez.
You're gonna want to stand up for this.
Oh no.
I'm the least likely to go to a theater to see a movie. Right.
Shocking.
I highly recommend seeing this one in the theater. There was Dolby Atmos in the one that I was in.
I am shook.
I know. The sound on it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the audio mix on this was great.
It was great.
Yeah.
And it was nice to have a score again. And we've talked about scores before, but it's the James Bond score. It's memorable. I mean,
yeah. I wish I maybe I missed it. Was there a big, because usually he has at least one scene where it's da-na, 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 and he's going around killing everybody and things are blowing
they hit
up.
That
and
quite a few times.
I heard the notes a few times, but I don't recall that specifically happening during an action scene.
In the 360 shootout with the
car,
Aston Martin, maybe.
Yeah,
I think so. Right when she's like, "Do something," because that's in the trailer. Do something, and he says, "Okay."
Yeah, but
again, I didn't remember hearing it. That's all. I'm not saying it's not in there.
But I don't think it was something that stood out. But I'd have to rewatch it to look for it.
Yeah. Maybe I didn't expect it, because usually they do that at a high point in the film, like where he's just like, he's winning the day, he's overcoming all the odds that are against him, and this is the climax. That's usually where that happens. Mm-hmm. And for them to put it there was kind of it's a tough moment in general because of what's going on. Maybe I just didn't expect it, so I didn't hear it.
Especially toward the end, there's so many almost emotional cues.
The last scene, horrible. Yeah. Come on, guys. I will say film scoring in some films has lost its art.
It's generic.
In some, it's become very generic, especially like we talked about with Marvel films. Even in like the more recent Jurassic Park, Jurassic World, they have that classic score from the first one, the very first Jurassic Park, which they misuse all the time now because it's repurposed. And it was used originally to create a certain tone at a certain scene, like when they first see the dinosaurs, and you're just like, wow, the amazingness of that, and it's the big swelling orchestra. And now it's like, here's a park, and it's a big swelling orchestra, and it's like they're just doing it to connect you with.
I read all about this, and it's because what they do now is they'll start editing the film before the score's been done, obviously.
Yeah.
But before they've even hired people, and they'll just insert scores that they like from other movies, and they'll edit around that score.
They've always used temps like that.
Yeah, but now so they'll say, well, I just pretty much want this, so just remake this in a way we can legally use it.
Right. And I've dealt with that, like in making my own projects and with other projects. You get the directors and the producers, they get comfortable with the track, instead of allowing a person that's designed like their mind around, let me create a custom track to fit the emotions of the ebb and the flow of the scene. They just go, well, I'm used to this. It works well enough, instead of blowing our budget on, full orchestras and Hans Zimmer. Yeah, let's just stick with those tracks. It doesn't happen with every movie, but I do know that happens a lot.
I think going beyond that traditional sound, like I've been enjoying his stuff more and more, especially the new Dune. You can listen to the soundtrack.
Yeah.
Is he's on Dune now too?
Yeah.
Oh, sweet.
That's cool. Yeah.
But he did Blade Runner, and I thought, oh my God.
He's great. Yeah.
He took it up a notch on Blade Runner 2049.
He's that meme where they're like, now Hans, we just need something basic. And it's just him on a piano and it's on fire.
Why'd you go so hard? It's a commercial.
Yeah. But you're saying you thinking scores are going down, but I actually think there's a new breed.
Hopefully.
With Trent Reznor kind of leading with different soundscapes.
Yeah.
There's not just a traditional orchestra going in new directions. But if you listen, I think The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is his best score ever.
Yeah.
But that score is just haunting, beautiful, fits the images perfectly.
Yeah.
But I love that new direction. Like I'm saying, like what Hans Zimmer's doing now digitally. And especially I'm hearing it in Dune. It's just, it's
that makes
different.
me more excited to see that.
It's different. It's a different soundscape that he's working with. It's not traditional instruments, but at the same time, I've seen like podcasts that break down like John Williams' score on Star Wars, and how he brought in those operatic themes of like having a theme for a character and bringing he revolutionized scoring in the 70s and 80s, I think. And then so now I'm hoping there's another renaissance of that,
I would love that. I mean, we've moved away from, in a lot of, I think, films, creating music that doesn't just sit in the film and just kind of reside because you need an underlining music track. We've moved to that, in my opinion, and more towards, we should move back towards having film scores that are like memorable. Like, there's been very few films that I'll go back and I'll be like, oh, I really want to listen to the soundtrack for that. Mm-hmm. Maybe if it's like a musical or something like that, I would like to listen to the soundtrack. But I mean, there's some standouts for sure. Lord of the Rings, Tron,
Back to the Future.
Well, I'm talking about modern.
More
modern ones and stuff like that, like the Tron restart with everything. I mean, even a lot of the Interstellar and stuff like that. I mean, a lot of those tracks and stuff I'd like to listen back to, but there just isn't a ton. Nobody's going to be like, oh, I really need to get the new Marvel whatever film soundtrack, So
anyway, just to wrap up the sound part, beyond the score, the mix of the audio I thought was just phenomenal. Like they used the space well. They actually used surround sound. I feel like I'm going to rip on Marvel movies for a minute, but I feel like it's a lot of churn and burn. Like get it out, put the dialogue in the center, have an explosion behind you, go. And this, I loved it. Like, there's specifically a scene with a bell ringing, and it's like, I was in that Dolby Atmos theater, and it was moving, in the right places. It was just awesome.
It did. It hit all the bells for you.
It did, literally. At least one.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have cheesy jokes at times, so you can just call me on them. Yeah. Well, I think that's a good way to leave it. So overall, let's see. I want to move kind of more into the spoiler talk now, if that's okay with you guys. Unless there's anything else you want to say.
Yeah, no.
Well, I mean, I mentioned the filmography, but there was a lot of transitions and cuts that were cool. The way the stylized of it and the color. And
it was well edited. I mean, that was one of the biggest issues I thought with Quantum of Solace. If you go back and watch that one, the editing on that is just so fast, and a lot of people called them on it. A lot of it might have been just because they didn't have the content. I don't know what happened with all of that, but this one, that was one of the only things that was a real detractor for me, was the pacing and the speed of the film. Mm-hmm. I think if you're older, more mature type viewer of movies, especially if you've been around the block with lots of different types of films, maybe you'll appreciate the length of this one. It never felt like what they were showing on screen was unnecessary. So it would be hard for me to go in and be like, yeah, cut that. But it just felt very long.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I was twiddling my thumbs a few times.
2.5 hours.
Yeah, it just got to a certain point. I think when we're like halfway through the movie and we literally just introduced the villain, and I was like, we're just now? Like, you've had little inklings and seen a little bit.
It could have very easily have been 2 movies. I mean, just... do you got the names of these people? Like,
Rami Malek, you have Daniel Craig.
What was the love interest? What was her name?
Leah Seydoux?
Madeline in the movie.
Oh, in the movie, Madeline.
Yeah, Madeline.
Yeah, her actress.
Her betrayal in that little first act, I guess. I mean, that could have been an entire film. Yeah. Like, they could have really just...
Spoilers.
To me.
It's not really a betrayal. Spoilers. No, we're not in spoilers yet. Yeah, I'm just doing a general summary of our overall thoughts. Film. Sorry if I didn't
It's all in the trailers. I'm not spoiling.
It's not really a betrayal.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Should we grade it before?
Well, yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit, just really any goods and bads overalls. My overall bad was that I felt like it was too long. I felt like, as well with the main villain, he did a great job as an actor, as a role in the film. It felt a little bit like we kind of just need a vehicle here for some things to take place, so we can put the focus more on James Bond. We can get more into that. Positives were, and I think the other negative was, maybe just me, some of the directing with some of the action sequences, it felt a little like, I don't know if I want to say on the nose, but it just felt a little like at times, okay, like, especially there's a big fight scene close to the end of the film during the climax where he's kind of, I will say, going up like a stairwell. And I felt like it had all the building blocks of a really cool action scene, but for some reason it just felt very like, I don't even know what it is. it was almost like they were like, all right, Daniel, this is your last action scene. He's like, all right, let me shoot some guys. Like that was like almost what it felt like.
There's a couple CGI parts in some of the faster paced scenes too that I just was like, how did this get past?
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm sitting there noticing it, somebody else had
Sometimes
to.
it's like that. You're like, how am I the one that's calling them on this?
Right.
I think that was mostly it. The story was it wasn't too twisty and turny.
Mm-mm.
I was expecting a little more of the espionage, twisty and turn, like everything just kind of went doot, 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 doot. That still, it was suspenseful and it was interesting.
I will say too, as a newbie to the newer franchise version of James Bond, I was grasping onto what I could for the first half hour.
Yeah.
But then eventually I was like, okay, I understand what's happening with everybody. But yeah.
Cool. Nice. Well, I think overall I would give it, my rating is an 86. That's where I'm at. It's kind of like a straight solid B. What about you guys?
Close to me. I was going to say 87.
Okay.
Do 94.
94. All right.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, with that, then I guess we can go ahead and get into spoiler talk. So officially, if you don't want anything spoiled, you're listening to the podcast, go ahead and switch it off. We'll give you a few seconds there.
We'll just turn it way down and mute it, but let it run.
That would be fine. Yeah, you can just let it run. But we're going to hop into it. So if you don't want anything spoiled, go ahead and turn off 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and
spoilers.
James
Everybody
Bond,
dies.
Man. It's the end of an era. Officially, Daniel Craig has. I mean,
yeah. So the biggest point I wanted to make, which you can't before spoilers, is the reason I like this movie is because there was actually stakes involved. And we were talking earlier about James Bond.
I like
you're a guaranteed.
I'm not
win.
a vegetarian. I like steaks. So.
Yeah, right.
Sorry, again with the bad jokes.
You know, like this is why I like Rogue One so much. We've talked about this a lot too. Like people can sacrifice themselves for the greater good, and James Bond's never been able to sacrifice himself.
Yeah, I was reading. So I was reading reviews online, just kind of like I like to get other people's opinions to see if it's not going to necessarily change my perspective, but it might change how I discuss it sometimes. If I'm like way discordant with like what I'm getting from a lot of people. And so I was reading this one review on Rotten Tomatoes, which it's doing really well on Rotten Tomatoes. It's certified fresh. It's, big box office weekend. They're saying estimated like 60 million and stuff like that, which they need to make a lot of money because they put a lot of money into this. Yeah, they need to make like $1 billion on it. But the one review that I read, which is just this, just the end, not I like James Bond die. I was like, there you go.
I use lot words when
few word do trick. Yeah, I was like, James Bond die. I'm such a good way of putting and then I was like, it's funny because it draws a parallel to they really misnamed the film because it's like No Time to Die, and this film was really just about death.
Right.
And there's in so many ways, and I think that's why it's such kind of a morbid, sad tale at times to me, because it really delved into like the impacts of living a life where you don't trust anybody and where you're constantly murdering people and people are trying to murder you and the results of that. And it felt like a title that was more in the vein of like dealing with your past, because it's so much of the plot was about dealing with their pasts, both James Bond and Madeline, and how that played out. That would have been a more fitting, I mean, No Time to Die is a great James Bond title, but he dies. So it's like, wait.
Right.
Yeah. Fallout was already taken. So.
Yeah. It's
I
like,
like that they made it final like that. It didn't land though. It's
Maybe,
like you were saying
though.
with the action parts. Like it just, to me, it's just like, yeah, he's going to die, and it was drawn out.
Yeah.
And,
Well, you can't, just like you can't kill a comic book character. I mean, I don't really think you can kill James Bond. Like,
well,
what I'm trying to figure out is, are they going to embrace the idea that this is just a 007-esque? I feel like they have to at this point, right? Because this is the first one they were direct sequels to. So in order to continue that story forward, like use the same actors and make sense of it, they kind of have to treat it like it's just a new 007. It's not the James Bond. But then I'm like, so how are they going to name the actor James Bond? It's like they're going to have to be like
Here's the problem.
Gary Phillip, 007, Gary Phillip, in order to keep the story. You can't find another guy named James Bond who also happens to be an amazing assassin.
But here's the problem I had with Skyfall, where they gave that backstory and stuff to where his name is actually James Bond.
Yeah.
I heard this internet rumor or something. I mean, it's no truth to it, but it made so much more sense. But James Bond was like a
call sign
of the 007.
That's his name within the 007 organization.
So when there's a new agent, he is the new James Bond. He is 007, this and that, and you move on. That's why you can have so many people throughout the years play the character that agent, And I thought that made so much sense until I think it was Skyfall when he's like, no, his name's James Bond.
Yeah.
He had a brother.
Yeah.
And,
Bond, James Bond. It's
Mhm.
really James Bond. Yeah. And I mean, we've had another 007 now. I mean, in this film, we had a different 007. And she didn't go by James Bond, which would have been weird. But
So
I, mean,
I thought they were setting up that like to make a sequel where she's the new agent. Is this what's happening?
But she was awesome. I loved her.
there's.
Well, no, I think that they
Go
did
ahead.
her a disservice by making her so unlikable.
Oh, yeah.
Why not make her charming and funny and make you want? Yeah, I like her.
Honestly,
No, I liked all the banter of
Yeah.
like, does that bother you? Does that bother you?
Mhm.
You know,
I felt like they did it
Just
a great.
seemed kind of
I felt they
jerkish.
did it actually a really good way because for people that are fans of James Bond 007, if you have another character come in and they're like the same person, but they're smarter, they do the job better, they're able to get one over on James Bond. If everything about them is
there was
better,
a level.
you're just gonna get frustrated because you're like, why are you making James Bond look like such a
Well, then
moron?
why not have a moment where he like hands over the mantle, like they do something together?
Well,
and it's
he did
awesome.
kind of, but then she handed it back, and I thought that was a very touching.
That's what I mean. Like they're both very competent
Yeah.
agents,
I guess
but
I'm
there
just
was that
saying-
mutual respect, which you don't
Yeah.
see in other films that are trying to.
I
you
think
know,
what worked
be
for me
woke
and
or
her
whatever.
in that role, which we're talking about Lashana Lynch, I think what worked for me in that role was that she was a new agent. She'd only been in the agent role for like 2 years or so, they said. So she had rough edges. She had things that she didn't understand. She was going to her senior, who knew a lot more, had been doing it for many years now, very successfully as well, like not just in the role, but very successfully. So it made sense that like they're going to fail to live up to the standard that the James Bond we know.
Sure.
Because if you go back and you watch, which you haven't, but if you go back and watch, he makes some rough, bad mistakes, especially in the first film. Like he blows up a whole embassy, spoiler, and they're like, "Why'd you do that? You can't just blow it up!" Like to the point where they literally put a tracker in him because he's doing so poorly in what he's supposed to be doing. So I liked it because it was like it feels realistic.
So I guess
You know?
my point would be, and I'm only gonna say because the new one is a female, the new 007.
But they were
So
setting it up.
The
potentially.
Cuban female was way better than her. And she
Oh,
was
yeah.
like, I've had 3 weeks of training and
Yeah.
I'm funny and, and I'm charming and
What's
I
her
kick
name?
butt.
De Arma. I love her to death.
I can't think of her name right.
And,
Anna
Naomi-
de Armas.
no, that's Moneypenny. Anna de Armas, yeah, as
Yeah.
Paloma.
She was in Blade Runner.
Yep.
Love her.
But yeah, she's like
But
a
she
great
was
character.
awesome.
You get to know really quick. And to the point where she's like, this is where my stop is. And he's like, well, I hope I see you again. I felt myself being like, bring her along.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was
Right?
shocked that she was just out of the film. I was
it
like,
was
wait,
shocking.
What?
Right.
Yeah.
So that's my point.
Yeah.
Like, why have a new 007 where I'm just like, who is this person and why are they a jerk?
I'm
right?
wondering in part because sad to say, but usually like he sleeps with them,
Mhm.
right? And then usually they turn out to be either somebody that gets killed, and then it's like this
Or they
big like
double cross him.
shocking thing that they died, and it makes you hate the bad person even more, or they double cross him and then they die
Right.
later on in some like fall off a cliff way. And so it was like almost like they were trying to have their cake and eat it too.
Mhm.
But then I was almost like, am I expecting too much? Like, was I expecting this character to turn into that kind of long-standing role that we've seen in the film? But
guess-
I thought she was good. I thought she did. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, if they came out in a year and said, "Hey, here's this new," what's her name was Nomi, I guess is that the agent's name?
Yeah.
If they said she's gonna be
No,
the new
the
Bond,
agent Paloma. Nomi is the 007. Yes.
yeah, that's what I mean.
Sorry,
So
yeah.
if they came out and said, "Here's a new Bond film," she's the 007. Based on the performance that they gave to her, it's not the actress's
yeah, I
fault.
wouldn't want to see it.
I wouldn't care.
Yeah.
because I didn't attach to her at all.
I would hope they would put a complete unknown, whether it's a guy or a girl. I
yeah,
think
that doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, I think I would hope it'd be a complete unknown because I think she's been substantiated as. I mean, you might as well make Moneypenny in a certain
Yeah.
sense. It's like just
more likable.
yeah.
to me. Yeah.
I don't know. We can talk more about who we want to be the next Bond if you guys want. I don't really feel like I have
No,
any
that's
cards
what I
in the
mean.
race,
Like, it
so
doesn't
it's-
bother me
horse in
that
the race.
there's
Go ahead.
a girl, black, white, Hispanic,
Yeah, not
Asian.
at all.
It can go to anybody. Just a competent agent needs to fill that 007.
Yeah, I think it can go
call.
to anybody. I think. Would I want to see a female James Bond 007 standalone film?
But what it did a good job of is, again, unlike Last Jedi, it doesn't diminish James Bond
Right.
to elevate another
Yes,
character.
I agree.
you know?
Okay,
Yeah.
I agree with that. That's a
Yeah.
good point.
That's the way you.
Yeah.
To me, that's the way you pass the mantle. You know.
There's just something about I don't know.
But
we
she's
could
a
talk more.
replacement.
It's like when
That's
you
what
watch
gets
those
me.
movies where it's like
But the overall.
it's like when you watch those movies that are like it's like a I'm not trying to be sexist here. Hopefully this doesn't come across that way. But you see like this, like, you know, thin, probably like 105-pound woman who's like, you know, somehow gotten trained in fighting, and she's taken out these like full-size bodyguards that are like, you know, twice her size and like have twice her bulk, you know, and she's running up and punching them and they're flying like into walls. And it's like, it's hard enough to believe that a guy like James Bond could make it through all of these things,
get shot
and not die. Right. Yeah. It's hard enough to believe that. But then you add just he was pretty bulky. I mean, if you look at his body, I mean, he was fit dude. Mm-hmm. You could tell that he was like in very good shape for this role. Like, it would be the same thing as seeing, like, imagine like me or some skinny dude, you know, unfit guy being like, I'm the new James Bond. It's like, it's just a mental
Michael Cera.
Yeah. Like imagine Michael Cera. So I don't know. I don't know. I'm not against it. It depends. It really depends upon who the person would be. Yeah. I don't have any horse in the race because I'm not going to decide. None of us are going to decide. Part of me is also like, could they find a female for that role that I feel like kind of fits within the character and makes sense for
just
that
make them likable.
Maybe.
That's all. That's kind of what sprung this whole thing. She just
what's even
likable.
funnier is like, again, quit trying to, you know, what's the word, like, you know, convert characters we already have. And did you see the trailer for the 335?
No.
It's like this secret agent movie, with a bunch of female agents. And I'm like, looks good. The action looked good. Looked great. I was like, why do you need to change James Bond? Just make something of your own. And that looked good. Had a great cast. I'm blanking on all of them.
Go back to when you were saying, you know, it's unbelievable that a woman could not a woman, but like a small petite one could overpower that many men. There's a point in this movie with the Cuban girl, I said her name, Paloma. Where she runs out of ammo and clocks that guy in the head with the back of the gun. And like knocks them all to the ground, but she gets knocked down and then grabs that gun, and while she's on the ground, and I'm like, that is phenomenal.
That was phenomenal. If you watch her fight choreography in particular, I was checking that out. They did a great job of showing that it wasn't through her brute strength.
Right.
Like there's moments Daniel Craig just manhandles a person, especially in the first film. But like, and you get that with her. She was like, she'll knock somebody over slightly or off, you know, put their footing off just enough so she can get a weapon or get a gun or get something that she can use to actually do the damage that she needs to do. And I felt like that was very fitting.
So it seemed like an odd choice to me to give all that to her and not the supposed replacement for 007. Like, why not make them be that person?
Yeah, she didn't really have any fight scenes. Mm-mm. She kind of just shot a bunch
Tried
of
to escape with the scientist, failed.
Yeah.
Which and even in the end, it's like, take her to safety. I'll do this hard stuff.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I really feel like they can't. I don't know what they're going to have to do unless they somehow create a system where the name James Bond actually is just transferred with the rank, the 007.
Yeah, I think the 007.
They're going to have to start the story over.
James Bond.
Yeah, which is kind of why I think, like I said, I left it so bittersweetly. The more I thought about it, the more I processed it, is because it's like, he's not coming back. He's pretty much said that he's not coming back. And
he's dead.
I almost feel like he literally said to them, like, because there was all this talk about him not wanting to do any more James Bonds. It almost felt like he said to him, like, look, I'll come back for one more film, but you're going to blow me up. There's going to be no question. I am not going to be in anymore.
I'm never going to do. Wait, how many zeros? Okay.
Exactly. But it's like they literally had to give this like a final. Like, I mean, the only final way without making him disrespectful would have been like to literally just shoot him in the head or chop him up or something like that.
That's what I think I enjoyed the most out of this one was it really changed the character. You know, we are spoilers. Giving him a daughter blew my mind. Like that really hit.
It did.
And even when she said, he's not yours, and he's like, those blue eyes. Like,
I want to take credit for this joke, but I went to see it with my wife, and she leans over to me when so Madeline's like, "Oh, that's not your kid." And she goes, "But I want to show you something in the basement." And my wife just leans over and she goes, "This one's your kid." There's like a monstrosity like chained up.
That's actually what I said. That's what I didn't expect that. I said that to Melanie though. Like she was walking down the stairs and she's like, "That one, that's your kid."
Yeah,
that was what he was going to say. Yeah.
We only feed him twice.
I thought she was adorable.
The kid was great.
Yeah.
Wasn't it she? I thought it was a girl.
Yeah.
Yeah. You said he?
No,
she? Oh, I thought you said he.
I
I'm
said
sorry.
the kid.
We don't do pronouns. Just edit that out. That's
the child. We'll just call them the child. Like we're going.
I did like that everybody told him it was his kid.
Yeah.
But then at the very end, when Madeline says she has your eyes, and like you already know that it's his kid, but you could see in his face that like sealed the deal.
Yeah. I even said that to Melanie.
No, he knew. I mean, I love the breakfast scene in the morning. He's just like looking at her and it's like, that is my kid.
Yeah.
Right. You know, like I'm like,
it's such a
why would she say that? But I like that's how. Gosh, that's when it really worked for me because, like I said, it really changed his perspective on love, relationships, everything. He understood that.
It did, but then he died, and that's why it's such a difficult. Yeah. It wasn't, and it wasn't like they just killed him. It was like, we're going to kill you, and even if you had survived, you wouldn't be able to be anywhere near those. We're going to take everything from you and then kill you. It was just to me, that raised the stakes even more. Yeah. That like there is no will after that, and I think that's why
you kind of see him give up.
He kind of gave up. Yeah, he's
he like shoots that ladder down and he kind of puts his hand on it and he's like thinking like, what's the point?
Right? Well, and I thought about it. I was like, why did they shoot him and give him and I was like, couldn't they have just shot him? And then I was like, oh, but then they might have had the idea that he's going to come back. Mm-hmm. So they had to give him that. It felt contrived. I mean, say what you will, but it felt very contrived. Like, oh, you can't go anywhere near your wife anymore or her.
But literally, to never touch your daughter.
So it just felt very contrived. And the fact that they couldn't heal that. Right. Like they literally, if you can come up with a technology that's like a nanomachine.
Yeah, but they set it up good in the beginning that once it's on, it never is.
That's the only loophole I could see in the whole thing.
That's how, but I mean, you could do that, whatever.
Yeah. You know that just felt very unrealistic to me, I guess. I mean, if it's a nanomachine, then you should be able to come up with a way that can literally target a specific aspect of the machine with other nanomachines and destroy it.
So the only loophole I see in the whole movie,
it might take them years and years, but
they give him a EMP watch to take out. I mean, the only reason they give him that watch is to blow up the guy's eyeball later. Yeah. You know what I mean? But I don't know much about nanobots, but I would assume they have some kind of electrical charge.
That's what I was wondering too. I was like, why isn't it frying the nanobots? I was like,
well, he'll probably just like use an EMP then to cure himself.
Well, and the other thing about that I thought at that exact moment, this one will be like, he had an earpiece in.
Yeah, and it didn't go out.
It didn't go out.
And if anything, he did the EMP, and then the guy was like, "Oh, Bond, you're back."
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, and so that recharged it.
We already substantiated twice, and it happened twice in the film. That an explosion really nearby him impaired his ability to hear something. So they have that understanding of like, oh yeah, things can block your sound or your ability to hear things, but they didn't. But again,
but the nanotechnology is more like that graphene oxide stuff. It's like activated by like magnetic frequencies and whatnot.
Yeah, I don't think it's actual electric magnetic pulse.
It would have at least taken out his earpiece.
But I'm saying it's not controlled. Yeah, like I don't think they're actual. That's
I don't really
realness
know
of
nanobots
are.
I don't know nanobots. Yeah. You can give it to that, but I don't think you can say anything about the earpiece. But I would say I had a rough time. I think the beginning of the film was very strong to me, especially if you've seen the last ones with the. In a sense, homage to Vespa.
Again, I just wish that beginning was a whole movie unto itself to build upon this one.
I agree.
But I loved how it told that complete story through time, 5-year lapse or whatever.
It started out very strong. I mean, it started off very intense with the big car chase scene through the city. And I thought that was a great way to introduce the action and the villains in the film. And I really enjoyed that. And then it was like, pump the brakes. And I really enjoyed the party scene too, but it just didn't feel. I knew he wasn't going to die there. I knew that they were going to capture the guy in some way. None of the fights or the violence after that first one felt like they were quite as big and bold to me, I guess in a certain sense. And the ending of the film is really, really like I was giving it an A from the beginning, and then as time went on, and it felt more and more draggy, and it got to the end, I kind of switched more into like the B-. And I think that's why I gave it more of a B rating.
The reason I give it a higher score than I feel is probably deserved is they didn't spoon feed a lot of stuff.
No.
So I noticed when he first puts Madeline on the train and says, "You'll never see me again," the last thing you see of her is a door closing and she reaches for like her stomach.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh my gosh, is she pregnant? And I figured she was going to yell it out.
Yeah.
So then later when there was a kid, I was like, oh, that's kind of nice that they did that. Same with
Why do you think James Bond put her on the train? He didn't want anything to do with that.
By the way, my name's not really James Bond. It's just a call sign. Good luck finding me.
Exactly. He noticed the test in the trash. He's like, you betrayed me, didn't you?
Yeah, it's convenient. You sold me out to Spectre. That's the real reason I'm leaving.
Sorry. That's horrible. Yeah.
So like when the tombstone at the gravesite,
dodge that bullet literally. Yeah.
When the tomb exploded, they don't show you how they knew he was there.
Yeah.
All they do is they show you the phone hanging.
Right.
So you know that the guy that was in that shack,
right,
that like hired the boy to show him, was responsible.
Yeah.
But they don't come out and say it. So I do I like more mature scripts. I don't know how you would even explain it.
Yeah.
It's not just like
they don't hold your hand.
They don't hold your hand.
Yeah. They give you the 2+2.
Yeah, the party scene where it kills all the Spectre agents. That was a great twist too. You know where
I thought that was good. It was a bit anticlimactic. I mean, you're like, what's gonna happen? Oh, everybody else is dying. Oh, all right, okay.
Yeah, so there's like two questions. Who was Malik's character's father?
They don't talk about
Don't
that.
ever say.
Nope.
And then who is Madeline's father? Don't ever say.
They don't ever say that either.
That?
Yeah, I as far as I know, they never talk about that.
Because I thought when the reveal about the daughter, when she says not yours, I thought, holy crap, it's his.
Yeah, we can kind of get to that. That's part of what I had a problem with, again, with the main villain aspect. He did a great job acting it. One thing didn't lead to another in my mind, which is if your parents, you have a good childhood for the most part, you're wealthy, you're not mentally weird, and a hired assassin from an evil organization comes and kills your family, how does that eventually translate into you wanting to just kill like hundreds of innocent people?
Mm-hmm. But
it doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
But wasn't his dad like some?
He was
something.
I don't know exactly what
with that type of technology.
Something like that. I mean, they hinted at that he was obviously big into plants, and he had a whole island. So you would think that maybe he had some involvement, and maybe there was like a missing scene or something like that they didn't put in the film. But they didn't give too much information.
Yeah, I think that's what happened to.
But it looked like he had a very well-adjusted.
Character.
I mean, from the photos that they showed of him in his childhood, everything looked normal.
So didn't he blames the whole thing on parents, right? And how like his whole family is killed, which could really hurt a child. And then he's like, by the way, I'm going to capture your child and kill you.
Right. So I'm like,
and raise her as well. I mean, I don't know what he's going to do, but
it all felt very manipulated in his role. Like he's going to kill the young girl, but because she doesn't die initially, somehow he decides to just leave her alive. But then he doesn't take her. He just leaves her. He doesn't raise her. He doesn't do anything with her. He just leaves her there because eventually he will come back for her. And that just happens to be James Bond's girlfriend or ex, I guess you should say. So that's where it all just, again, kind of fell into this, we need things to work out a certain way.
Yeah. There should have been more with their history together or how she got away eventually or something.
There should have been more to that. Like he took her captive for many years and then eventually let her go, but she had to do certain things for him in order. And I thought that was because the secret that she was hiding from James Bond, I mean, really honestly wasn't. Maybe it's like something I'm shy about because it's like, it's embarrassing that my mom was a drunkard and my dad got killed and all this other stuff. And I almost got killed. But that's not like, I was betrayed by this woman that I was in love with. And, I caused her to die sort of. And
am I right? She just became a psychiatrist. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. She basically was living a pretty standard life, I guess.
Well, I mean, in relationships, that'd be pretty hard to admit to, but that's what I mean. That's what I love that beginning because they were both trying to come to terms with their past damage. I was okay with that. I think it all came together too conveniently. Just also, like how this all connects, like this beautiful web of like villains that just happens to be important for this film.
I knew Malik's character was going to be the one with the mask, like as soon as they show him in her office or whatever. Mm-hmm. But then what I didn't get was the age difference because in the beginning, it's clearly an adult. I mean, it's not a teenager. You know what I mean?
I mean, in my mind, he jumped like 20 years. We didn't really see his face too well in the beginning.
But then when you see him as adults, they look like they're the same age.
Yeah. I mean, you can't do too much about that.
5 years for the adult.
Well, there was a 5-year jump from when James Bond and her split up. But then prior to that, the flashback scene at the very beginning of the film, that must have been at least 15, 20 years.
And he looks like a
way more than that.
Point.
Yeah, I mean, she'd have to be realistic about it, she'd have to be like in her mid to late 20s, maybe early 30s. So that would have had to been a jump. I think
So he would have been like 45.
She was probably like 10. So maybe like 20. Yeah, he would have been about 45 probably, to be realistic about it.
No, when he killed her mom,
yeah,
he could have been 20.
Yeah.
Still,
but that's 45 because it would have been
35?
at least because she had to have been at least like 10 years old when she was
right. I just say like
I don't know.
Visually and physically it didn't.
We're probably getting way into the weeds on this. And
also, they never explain. I'm assuming it's because of the plants, but like he gets shot and then his face turns black and veiny.
Well, they explain that because he used a chemical
from a plant
from I think the guy that killed his family, and I felt like
they did
that actually could have been used as a better explanation for why he was a psycho.
Mm-hmm.
If they had given it some sort of James Bondy, it would have been very James Bond like, but they could have given it a James Bondian like twist and said like the chemical that he used not only burnt his face
but part of his brain,
and it's got holes in his brain
right.
and it's causing him to be psycho. Like that would have made a lot more sense to me, but they tried to do this like have your cake and eat it too, where it's like they give you a relatable reason for why he would want to do all this stuff because they killed his family, but then they're like, and I'm also just gonna keep going and killing a bunch more people because murder's good now, I guess.
No, it's efficient.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
So I don't know. I had a hard time relating to it, and it really just ended up feeling like they wanted to have him take a certain place in the role of the film to get James Bond blown up.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of how it felt. But I also didn't get maybe they explained it. You guys might get this, the acid water stuff.
Nope.
I did not understand where the acid water came from.
And then like the thing, the silo opens and the water pours down. And so I'm thinking, that's how they get it down there. But then James Bond falls in it and it doesn't burn him up. So I'm like, that's
just regular water. Yeah. And it refills when you close it, the missile silo. I was like, that's very convenient.
Why not give it
They have missile silos that the water is coordinated based upon if it's opened or closed. Like, why wouldn't they just like, why would they ever need those missile silos? They should have just like completely dammed them up, like covered them over with like wood or something like, I don't know, some sort of concrete.
Well, they were going to fire missiles from them.
They didn't have it. No, right underneath was, I thought, the plants. Because when he opens it, he's looking through the glass and you see that they're opening and the plants in the water are underneath all of that. And it's not water. It's like some sort of acidic acid or salicylic acid or something.
Yeah, well, that's the chemical that they're
right. But
producing,
what was that from and for and why? They don't.
I
mean, it just felt very
stuff that they're going
Bond.
to infect the world with.
I thought they were going to affect the world with the virus,
the nanobots.
Yeah. I thought that because they went through all the databases and they talked about how
maybe
they got.
Dave's saying like that stuff is inside
in
the
there. Yeah, that's what they're cultivating.
Yeah. And that's what kills them. So when they find a DNA match, they just release that acid.
I thought they were going to
that actually. I mean, that actually makes sense. They don't explain it.
Why would they develop that in the same thing though? Why would they put the nanobots in there? They would have like their own separate little area where they would put the poison in there and then have the, I don't know. I don't think that makes a lot of sense to me still. I'm probably getting too in the weeds on that as well.
It seems like that the place they blew up was manufacturing it.
Right.
This was storing it. The water seemed like it was storing something. That was all the...
Well, they had those like red rods, right, that were in whatever that acid was.
They looked like lights, and I thought that was an electrical hazard.
But they were like pushing something in the water, right? They were like cultivating something in the water, and I was like, what are you cultivating? Because if it's acid, you make acid in like a chemistry lab. Like you don't make acid in like...
Breaking Bad taught us, plastic tubs don't eat through the thing.
It just didn't make a lot of sense. It went completely unexplained.
I agree. I assumed
the guy fell in there and he's like,
we're gonna do this and kill everybody with nanobots, but we also have this.
Right, acid, and
we just haven't gotten this far yet.
It kind of felt
maybe
almost
it's just like one of his many horticultural experiments.
It felt like that, and it felt like they were trying to do their here's James Bond's famous for like, we're gonna lower you this mechanism, this slowly moving mechanism that dips you into this vat of acid. Like that's what it felt like. We have to have our like our James Bond type thing. So we're going to fill this with acid, but not give you any explanation for why it's there or how it's there.
So I normally like off-color jokes, right? Things you don't expect. One thing I didn't like in this movie is when they first showed the scientists in the lab and they're like, hey, where did that SARS container go or whatever? And then the guys
that was bad.
And it's just like, that is such bad timing. You're joking about a weaponized virus.
Yeah. That was rough. Yeah.
And
and then he's like,
that
I'm going to
half the
give you this
country right
small.
now
Yeah, he's
feels
like,
a certain way. And
yeah, that was pretty rough. I agree with that.
About
it's like,
labs,
especially
and,
imagine if you're somebody
bioweapons,
non-security.
yeah. Imagine if unfortunately somebody in your family had passed from coronavirus.
And it does
right
nothing
now.
to push those people die.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it does nothing to like help the story. I
No.
just feel like I know they did reshoots and re-edits. So
Yeah.
like it's 10 seconds. You should have just taken that out.
Yeah.
And then it just makes
It was unnecessary.
that
to the
scientist guy even more pathetic, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
it's like, oh no, I can't even eat it.
It was just unnecessary
Yeah,
for the scene. I didn't feel like it added anything
It's
because
just
those
the
people
timing.
died so
if it
quickly
came out
after.
3 years ago, it's fine.
Yeah.
If it comes out 3 years from now, it's probably fine. It's just right now, it's like that's a bad joke.
That whole thing. I mean, I don't know. If I was those bad guys, I wouldn't have shot everybody too. Like he walks in and they immediately start killing everybody. Why would you, if you're a scientist, help them?
Right.
You know they're probably just gonna kill you anyways.
Well,
You kill everybody else.
You stay alive, right?
You don't know if I would not assume if they've come in and they've randomly just killed off a bunch of people that have nothing to do with their plan. I have no expectation that if I give you what I want, you're gonna let me live.
Yeah.
So it's like,
what are you getting?
No, I'd rather not kill the world. Just kill me.
At least they could have tied it into the soup joke.
Yeah,
Here's some tomato
Yeah,
soup.
there you go. That's funny. Yeah. Bad, man. That's just so bad. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, so I thought the first part of the movie was good. I think where it really hit kind of a bad point for me started actually after the first big battle in the party where all of the people from the Spectre die. I think at that point I'm like, okay, this is turning into a completely second film here that has a completely separate thing to do. You've set up all this idea with Spectre, and I was fine with that. But then it's like, now we've got to build up this whole second plot of who the bad guy actually is, what his motive is, why he's doing that. And it was a good twist in the moment, but there was so much film left to go. I didn't have it in me to kind of like not only build up a whole new set of interest in his backstory and why he was there and what had happened, but then also just be able to give them the gimmies on like, okay, well, yeah, even if you think there's a reason for it, why is there acid there without any real explanation for it? Or why does he just suddenly be like, okay, yeah, just let the little girl go. I mean, I know I kidnapped her to try and make use of her. I'm just going to let her go because I don't really have any need for her anymore because I ran away. And why he's suddenly by himself shooting at James Bond, like what happened to his personal guards and
why did he stay behind?
The boats, why the boats were there that were coming to the island and what happened to them. And there's just so many things that are just like, what?
Nobody ever asked my opinion, but I think the movie could have ended better when he gives the kid and Mandolin off. I think Matilda was the kid's name.
Yeah.
To the new agent.
Yeah.
And says like, here's a boat, get out of here. Mm-hmm. When he was dying and stuck there, she could have shown back up. And been like, I'm here to save you. Well, what are you doing? You need to, get away from me. You can't touch me. I've got these nanobots. No, Bond, I'm here to save you. And then he could have decided, you need to let me die. Right?
Yeah.
Like, why not bring her? I guess to me, it all hinges on if she is the mainstay. Is she coming back? If she's the new 00. If so, you should have had her come back at the end.
I don't think she
played a
is.
role.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, we can talk more about that. I just don't know. I don't think they can continue with this story and have it make sense that it's James Bond.
Yeah.
Unless they come up with some way to transfer the name.
Well, I just wanted to comment on your alternate ending too, which actually sounds good. Even though if she couldn't do it, at least she tried.
Right.
But what broke my heart the most was when he found that little stuffed animal on the floor and he's like, oh,
I know.
Yeah,
what was the point of that?
Yeah, so
he could have given it to her.
So I'll add to your scene. Yeah, it's like, just give this to my kid.
Wash it first in the beach.
It was. I think it was to show his progress that he was like ready to be a dad as an actor.
But it was such a great little double take. Like, wait, is that her thing?
Yeah.
And he just stuffed it in. Yeah.
They didn't even give you a hint that like, somehow he survived and he went to like Nicaragua and got some weird treatment. And they didn't give you like the way they did the final shot where you're driving through a tunnel, which literally looks like the opener, with the gun barrel and the white light, how that kind of starts the film. And then instead it just closes off and it just becomes darkness. And it's literally just saying to you, it's like, yeah, remember that opener that's so famous? Nope. It's done.
It's over.
And I think that was very purposeful in that framing of that shot. But I mean, that's what I was saying. I mean, to go through from the very first film with James Bond, where he's literally cold, calculated, he's messy, but he just doesn't care. He falls in love, he gets betrayed, and then he kind of grows from that to literally almost the exact same thing sort of happens to him in this film, and in a way ends up causing his death at the very end. It's so sad. It's
all because he couldn't trust somebody. If he had just trusted her,
trusted her.
Yeah. Right. But it's that I did appreciate, and I don't have the other 5 movies as a reference. Like he had growth in this movie.
Yeah, right? She was still pregnant. Nothing was going to change that.
It felt like as a standalone, like if I hadn't,
he didn't want happen.
If I hadn't seen everything that happened in the other films as a standalone, I would have been able to like that and appreciate that a lot more.
That's what I mean. But if this was the second film in 5 or however many there were, like I said, and then that betrayal, and then she comes back, that would have been like.
But it didn't feel. I guess that's the big thing. It didn't feel like his death was like a reward for anything. Not that death should ever be like, oh yeah, that's a reward. But like, it didn't add anything good. It literally was just sad. It was just tragic.
I think it would have been better if he didn't. He gave up, which I understand why. That's why they did the nanobots thing and stuff. But it's James Bond. Like, I still think he should have tried to get out of there until the very end.
Oh yeah.
Well, even if he did
it literally felt like he just gave up, and it's like that shouldn't be James Bond.
Which makes it not rewarding,
right?
Yeah.
So, but even if he survived, I think it would have been an even more bittersweet ending if he survived but knew he could never see his daughter.
But then there's, in my mind, I agree that is bittersweet, but there's a hope there that maybe at the very end you show him going to meet like somebody that could provide a treatment. And they could say something like, "You really want to try this?" And he's like, "Yeah, do it. I'm Bond, James Bond."
To me, it's not like
it would have been sad either way. Is what I think.
But if they're gonna end it, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, I think I do like that there's stakes, and he does die.
Yeah.
But it's not like he's Lou Gehrig and has Lou Gehrig's disease. Yeah. And it's like, sorry, dude. This is it.
Right.
It's like you have nanobots and it's 2021. So maybe by 2027 we figure this out. But for now, stay in California and Madeline will stay in New York.
Right.
And you can Skype.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you got shot. But as we know, James Bond getting shot is like a flesh wound. It doesn't matter. Right. Like you get shot, you'll be fine. In any movie, the bad guy that gets shot, and it's like, unless it's a headshot, they're probably fine. And the same thing with good guys. I think really what I'm realizing is it's going to depend upon where they go with the series. If they completely reboot everything and restart everything, it's a brand new actor with a brand new story, brand new, person named James Bond, has nothing to do with the original.
Why?
I'm going to be like, why did you do that? Why did you make it such a downer ending? If they continue with it and they're like, oh, we needed to, have a new iteration and it's a continuation of the story, they're like, all right, I can understand you wanted to add a definitive ending. I'll still feel a bit like maybe if it was a thing where like, and I know it sounds super cheesy, but it's like he had to go down with the ship. Like, it didn't really feel like he had to go down with the ship. He had time to climb the ladder, to go up there, to stand, to talk, and to like walk over here and look around. It's like if he had to like hold a button or hold a door.
That's what I was
going
to say. As he's opening it, the missile is coming in.
Exactly.
And it's that last moment. Yeah, exactly.
Like Thor from this power of the sun, the stars blowing past. Just something that would have made it warranted for like to him to get his life off.
I don't know. I find myself comparing it to Mission Impossible Fallout. Like, do we even need a James Bond franchise?
I don't know.
You can just create your own. What they're doing with that 335 looks like a planned type of series, type of espionage, good.
Yeah.
If it's good action, I'm in. The way they ended Fallout was a brilliant way that, brought all the stories together. It touched on all the films, brought it back to the core of like the reasoning and meaning. If he died in that film and that was the last one, it would have been phenomenal.
Yeah. I thought they might. I actually was thinking they would maybe do that.
But now I'm thinking they're doing Mission Impossible 7 or whatever the next one
Until
is.
Tom Cruise can't run anymore, they're going to keep doing Mission Impossible movies.
But I'm saying,
they're going to have that scene where he's booking
But I'm like, now there's a potential to ruin that crowning achievement, Not that I think they will, but I'm just like, sometimes it's good to go out on top. And that's what I liked most about the film, is like it did kind of give you a good ending.
Yeah. This wasn't a good ending.
My two favorite parts were the villain. I know, Joel, you didn't quite.
I thought he did a great acting job. It was just, and it wasn't his fault.
I guess his monologues, what I'm talking about.
Those are good. Yeah.
Where he says, I'm paraphrasing, but something about like the majority of people don't want to know when their time has come. They want to feel like they've avoided death, and they don't want to be aware. So if you put that in today's time, it's all about a virus, right? Even though it's nanobots, it's still a virus.
Yeah.
And it's like, the masses don't want to know that COVID might take them out. So we have to offer them some kind of hope.
Yeah.
Right. To keep them going. And so that's kind of his whole thing is like, I'm the God, right? I'm the invisible God, I think he says.
Yeah.
Right.
Here's where it would have been.
So I related to that. I just liked it.
Yeah. I don't want to interrupt your point if you had more.
No, that's it.
And I know they couldn't do this because they can only give so much backstory. Like they had to pick and choose, but if they literally could have show us the scene where his family's getting killed and show that messing with his head, show that it just completely warped him and turned him into this bad person. I think it would have added some believability to me to the idea that he's capable of not just murdering a whole, horrible organization of people that are already doing murders and killed his family, but that he's also willing to go to the next step and just kill a bunch of innocents for the most people. Which in his mind, they weren't innocents, but like, again, they never murdered his family.
To your point, they ruined whatever he said in that moment for me when he took the kid and held her hostage. Yeah. And it's like, so to you, it's about more than you're giving people a chance to die or whatever you want to call it. You're deciding when people should die.
In that scene when that happened, I was really hoping that what it was going to be was, there was a lot of unrealistic aspects of that to me in that moment, but I really was hoping it was like, I just want the child to be here so you will listen. So you can hear what I have to say. And then he let her go. Like that would have been fine to me. But when he was actually using her as a bargaining chip, I'm like, so how smart are you? How conniving are you? How well planned are you? Like you knew that James Bond was in the facility. The two of them were there, that they had planted a few explosives. So you knew from like ahead of time that you needed to have a trapdoor available to you, like in your office, because that might take place.
I thought that whole scene was badass. Though.
Yeah, it was
like
cool.
Immediate, like
but at the same time, like
it ruins whatever he stood for.
Right. So it's like you're either completely well prepared or you're completely underprepared, and it just the dichotomy between those two things just didn't make a lot of sense to me at times. And again, it's because I felt like it was because the people that were making the movie needed to have things go in a certain direction. And the biggest victim of that was the villain. Yeah, Malik. Was Malik. Yep. Because the vehicle through this entire movie, the primary focus, which makes sense because it's a James Bond movie, was James Bond. But it was so much about, every single scene was about him dealing with loss and dealing with the death of his friends, which we even talked about. That felt just so sad to me. And it's like so much, like when a CIA, because he was in the first movie, and he was a great character in the first movie, he was very interesting. So you're like happy to see him again. And then he dies. And you're just like, oh man, first he breaks up with this girl for the wrong reasons. Then this great guy dies. And then he gets this thing. And then he gets killed. It's just like, such a downer.
But I like how they wrap the film. It might not be the last line of the film. And they paraphrase Jack London, which just part of that quote is, I shall not waste my days in trying to prolong them. I shall use my time.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that in today's world, that's a great message. And it's a good point to end on.
Yeah.
Right.
I guess that's the no time to die, but he did die. So
is that part of a bigger quote? No time to die, or is that just?
Well, they paraphrase it at the end when they're toasting him, which is weird that they use scotch. I get that he drinks scotch in the movie, but where's his martini?
Or like, that's not a toast. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, I still get it, but you're toasting him, and that's where he says that He kind of says that Jack London line.
Yeah. Anyway, and we didn't really talk about the middle of the film too much. There's just a lot that goes on. Kind of, it feels like a progression to get him to the final epic showdown type thing. I don't know.
It's like you said. That's why I was kind of twiddling my thumbs at certain points.
Yeah,
that's just like, I'm here for the ride, but the ride's not going anywhere.
Right, and you're kind of just waiting for him to get back together with Madeline at that point. I thought it was a good twist that he had a kid. But it was kind of an unnecessary twist, to be honest. It's sad.
I thought it really added to the character, but the whole time, because she said it's not your kid, I was thinking like, well, who is this? Oh my God, it's blah blah blah. Oh, what? Oh, if she, like I even thought it was the Spectre dude's kid.
Yeah.
Christoph Waltz's character. What was the name in the movie? I can't remember.
Oh, I forgot I know what you're talking about. That
Yeah. Anyway, I thought
Blofeld.
Yeah, Blofeld. So I thought something about if she touches it, you know what I mean? Like if that's his DNA, if she touches his daughter, that type of thing. I don't know. I just kept on thinking like weird scenarios, but like, no, it's actually his. And she's just not telling him.
The makeup looked great when they show the guy in prison. I didn't see the one before, so I didn't really know who he was, but they show him kind of talking to himself. And then you realize he's talking to everybody through the earpiece at that party. And then they're like, we need to search every part of him. And she makes a joke about, I'll get my gloves.
Yeah.
Gross, inappropriate.
Yeah.
But anyway, then the next time you see him, his eye socket is hanging down.
Yeah.
And they don't like cut away. Like it's just like that the
That's
whole
true.
time.
Which I thought was cool.
That whole
he's got the
interrogation
scar there, and it
scene.
makes sense that he would have lost his eye. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I'm just that whole interrogation scene again. I don't need a bunch of things blowing up. It's just a great conversation. It was.
I thought that was probably one of the best moments in the middle part of the film.
Especially
I
because
enjoyed that,
some of the dialogue felt really cheap and weak to me. But like you're saying, that interrogation part was great.
But
it was great.
Christoph Waltz is just awesome actor. But it might have been a little weightier if you saw the other films because they had history. But
yeah, go ahead. Sorry,
I still liked it.
But even that line about like he's like you know. In terms of interrogation, you did everything wrong here. You did the one thing you're not supposed to do. And it's like, even choking him was part of his banter back and forth, but he doesn't even realize that it actually killed him because he touched him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just thought it was great.
I thought it was good. I thought there was like some stuff that happened close to the middle. Like not only was Anna de Armas kind of like a whatever character, not a bad one, but just kind of a whatever. But we also sort of had that with the Billy Magnuson character, Logan Ash.
Yeah, see, like we did this whole
yeah.
review without even mentioning that. So
right,
how
exactly.
pivotal.
Yeah.
How pivotal, yeah.
It's like maybe there was some room in there for some of that stuff to get cut out. Like I get that.
Well, I think if there were rewrites and reshoots, I think Anna de Armas' character was definitely one of those casualties.
I can't even remember what happened to him.
Oh,
he got squashed by the car in the forest.
Okay.
Yeah,
he's like, "Please save me." He's like, "Boom, boom, boom."
Yeah.
Right.
It was brutal death.
It was a brutal death, but that whole scene was a little bit.
I guess I'm just trying to think:
underwhelming,
was his
like-
character necessary? All he did was get the scientist away for a while.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, I mean, he was part of that whole plot. I think
Yeah, his whole plot was to help bring the scientist. He was supposed to be, I think, the person that they were going to meet, and then he was going to take him. Which then you're like, well, why weren't you there at the party? Like,
I guess I should be.
I guess they were going to
thankful
meet somewhere else, maybe. I don't know.
because of any other Bond film, it would have been that Cuban girl who betrayed him and stole the scientist from him.
Yeah.
And then she would have been the one.
It felt like their roles kind of were. It felt like that should have been included in her role, though, sort of, right? And
Because
it was like their
that's
way of
typical.
not making it typical was to split into two roles, but then you get two characters that are somewhat like underdefined and lackluster. I mean, I don't know.
Again, we did that entire review without talking about that character.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would almost be interested. We could talk about that, but like almost if they did a spinoff of like Anna de Armas's character, or just like Lashana Lynch or something, like maybe do a spinoff movie where it's not like a 007 movie. It's like a
if they actually build on those
it's
characters,
like a
I think
Bond
it'd be
franchise
great. 'Cause
film.
I thought they were all great.
I'd be fine with that. But if they're gonna restart it, I don't know. We'll kind of see what they do from here. So.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like M gonna still be there. Ray Fiennes' character.
Exactly. It's like we've got Q, we've got M. Like, are they going to be the same people? In the past, it was always like there was just this kind of unspoken rule that they were the same people because it was more of like a fable almost type thing. But
I'm trying to think. Oh, Ralph Fiennes,
the guy that Ray Fiennes.
Yeah,
I don't
plays
know.
M.
Plays M. They kept making the joke about how he seemed thinner. Did that used to be a different actor?
No.
Or he's like, is the desk bigger?
No, there was a different.
No, that's
Judy.
No, that's a
inside
that
joke.
Was, a play on his opinion of him, not an actual. You lose weight? Like, no, it's like you're smaller in this organization, not.
Okay.
I think he was just making fun of him, to be honest.
I guess I was just watching it being like, there must be a different meaning here that I'm not picking up on.
Yeah, I thought about that too, but no, I think he was just making fun of him.
No, it's like, is the desk bigger or are you
just
getting
calling him a small man?
And at the end, he's like, that's definitely not bigger.
Yeah, he says the desk is the same or something.
It was good. I mean, they had toned down elements of normal James Bond films.
But
like,
I mean, he screwed up big time by, this gain of function research. You know what I mean? It's like,
it's just so on the nose.
Thought it was gonna be good. That's why
it was pretty on the nose. I was like,
why it was delayed?
We're gonna do a virus film right now. Like that's not
where
a
there's
great
gain
time.
of function research within
exactly.
the
I mean, I'm glad they
agency.
leaved it in there because again, if you watch Winter Soldier, half that stuff, Falcon Winter Soldier, half that stuff doesn't really even make sense.
Yeah, true.
It's like what. I don't know.
I don't know. Anyways, overall, I don't know. I feel like if you're going to see it, it's good to see it in theaters because it's got, like you said, really good audio mixing. The action scenes are really good. I don't know who to suggest it to. I don't feel like it's a bad film, but I feel like it's a downer experience.
It just looks
so
good.
it's kind of,
It
it did
looked
look great.
good.
It was
Like I
shot
said,
beautifully. I mean, the cinematography is great.
You were my test. Like, yeah. So if you could walk into this knowing nothing about James Bond, I think you could be entertained.
I almost feel like it's better. I almost feel like you're going to like it a little better in a certain sense as a standalone because you're not going to have a lot of the associations of kind of
you
where
won't get
James Bond has gone as a character.
A sense of his
Yeah.
longevity in the role.
Yeah,
But
it'll be downer, but it
like,
won't be
to
as
me,
downer.
yeah,
You can
it
think,
plays.
well, his kid lived on and,
it's such a gamble to me.
yeah, if she becomes the new Bond, that would be awesome.
I get
know.
that everything has to be like a serial now. It has to continue on.
Yeah.
It's just such a gamble to me to make the first half hour not be catch up.
Yeah.
Like I just didn't know what was going on. Like they could have done a 5-minute recap of some kind.
Last time on James Bond,
right.
007.
Or like when the girl, when
guy wanted
Madeline
to
and her are talking,
take
they
her
could have just
water.
had a conversation to catch me up to speed.
Yeah.
And I'd have been like, okay.
There's a lot to cover.
Even the first conversation,
films.
because it starts off with action, I think, right? So there's not a lot of dialogue until like 10 minutes in.
Well, it starts off with
they bring
the
up Spectre,
forest
and then you would have had a sense of that from
But
the last
the
film.
first conversation made zero sense to me.
Yeah.
And it's like, why not like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's a gamble. It's a gamble.
It is a gamble, yeah.
Yeah, do you
But
throw
again,
in
it's
a
my
couple
fault.
Casino Royale flashbacks to add to that runtime. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's my fault because I wouldn't go see Endgame without seeing at least Infinity War, right?
That's a much closer tie-in, though. I mean, that's like a literal direct sequel.
Like when the tomb blew up, they just showed
They
the
resolve
logo,
things
and
in
I
the
was like,
final
I don't know
film
what
that they
logo
set up in the
means.
first, where they
That's her.
kind
That's
of
Eva Green's character. Yeah,
really
that's
the
right.
only thing that they've set up from the beginning, kind of all the way through, other than a few people, is the Spectre organization.
Right.
Like that's been kind of like the ongoing story thread that's tied them all together. But like Endgame is like you've got complete character arcs that were started,
Multiple
with
characters.
Iron Man, I am Iron Man, all the way to so it's like you've got all that wrapped in. So that's a much harder sell for me to tell somebody to go see Endgame without having seen at least watch, the
I guess to me it
all
feels
the
like I know there's new
Captain
Ghostbusters
Americas
coming
and-
out.
Okay.
Imagine if you went to see that Ghostbuster and you'd never seen the other two, and the first half hour all they did was reference the original two Ghostbusters.
they might.
And you'd be like, that's a huge gamble.
Because they're showing, I mean, they might. They're showing a lot of footage of the original crew, and
Are they?
they're shot like they're watching like the commercial on the TV, and then they have like the car, and I think they
Yeah,
even
But they'll
call
probably catch you
Dan
up,
Aykroyd
I would
and-
imagine.
But again,
Probably.
it's 2021. It's not like you can't turn on one device of
Yeah.
your 12 in your house and watch those movies.
But we were talking about this
Yeah.
with Avatar. I mean, he's going to make 5 more, and it's like, you expect people to go see a 10-year-old movie at this point? Just to
He's
get caught
saying
up
he's
to
going to
see part
make
2?
5. I don't know. He's kind of like what's his name, George R. R. Martin of the film and mindset right now for me, which is like, yeah, I started this super popular series. And am I going to finish it? I don't know.
So imagine
Like,
Avatar 2 comes
unless
out.
he's making
we were-
all the movies at once.
we
like
were
he's literally just
talking
doing
about it
back-to-back.
last week, and we came up with the entire Marvel universe happened in between the sequel.
1 and 2.
Yeah, it's true.
like-
actually. Yeah.
But imagine you go see the new app whenever it comes out in 5 more years, and they don't even do a somehow previously on.
There's not much to do. I mean, honestly, it's like bad guys came to planet, tried to mine it, didn't work out.
But they'd at least have
and
to
then
say
this
that.
guy managed to somehow jump into the body of an avatar thing through an avatar. I
So it
guess.
didn't
Yeah.
feel like this. Again, I'm thankful they don't
Spoilers for Avatar.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm thankful that the James Bond movie doesn't spoon feed you. I'm just saying there could have been
Yeah, talk
2
about
minutes
spoon
of
feed.
clarification.
A James Cameron movie spoon feeds you for sure.
They even played.
we
what
have
they
to
do-
get the gotta have it on this
Well, I
planet
think
of
they played a couple
natives.
of the earlier films in the theater as well as a $5 fan events.
That would
Yeah.
have been nice.
They do
Yeah.
that a lot now with like
Yeah.
ongoing series.
Again, I wanted to
They'll
go,
do a thing
but
where
I
you
just
can
never
buy
had
and
time.
watch all the films, and then they'll preview
Mhm.
or premiere the new one at the end. They did it with Harry Potter.
Yeah.
They did it with Lord of the Rings too, but that's a slog. Like I've done a Lord of the Rings marathon before, extended
Oh.
edition actually.
Endgame, they
but
did.
I mean,
the
I had to step
entire
away for a
Mar-
few hours a couple times. But,
Those people that did the entire Marvel universe in 3 days or something.
oh, that's
in
ridiculous.
the theater.
You have to
Like
wear a
that.
diaper.
No, they were all pajamaed out, man.
Oh,
I mean, it would
jeez.
have been fun, but no.
I get to a certain point where it stops being fun. I love movies. I
There's
love
about
watching them.
5 of
to a
them
certain
I'd want to
point.
see in the theater again. That's it.
I don't know
Yeah.
if we just keep watching long movies. So I've seen 2 movies in the theater now since
Yeah.
we did this podcast thing. And both times, by the time it was over, I'm like, just end, because I have to go to the bathroom.
Well, that's the key. Just
where's the
go
intermission?
before.
Yeah, there's an app
and
or a
don't-
website.
Yeah, but I just take the soda down the whole time. I'm just like living free and not thinking of consequences.
Do you get there? Like, what's your timing of getting to the theater? Is it like right when it starts?
Oh yeah,
Is it early
I
or
came
late?
in right when the preview started
Okay, that's the perfect timing for me. What about you?
because it's
Yeah,
assigned seating now.
I know I have.
Signed, yeah.
It's literally I've timed it. It's 20 minutes from the start time till that movie actually starts worth of
Yeah.
advertisement or trailers.
Gotcha.
So you always got a big window in terms of trying to make that film. So yeah, if you're sitting there 5 minutes into the first trailer, go to the bathroom.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah,
that's
pretty
good.
much.
I feel like the trailer, that's got to be a miss, right? Like, why are you running 20 minutes of trailers? We all have the internet. We all have TVs at home.
No, it's still badass. I love, like I said, I thought I liked the Eternals more when I saw that the final trailer on the big screen.
I can't remember that we used to buy tickets to go see Alvin and the Chipmunks just to see the Star Wars trailer.
Yeah,
back in
That
the day.
happened. Yeah.
I like the trailers because you get the most interaction with people in the theater during the trailers, and there's sometimes the funniest things. People just shout out during it. You know, like I talk about this the one time I went. I forget what movie I was seeing, but it was the trailer for Solo, and there's the scene where Chewie's hanging off of the train, and there's like the other train coming in the opposite direction, and they cut it right when it looks like the train might hit Chewie, and somebody just shouts, "What's gonna happen?" It's like, what do you think's gonna happen? It's Chewie. He's not gonna die.
I'm a guy that yells stuff out too, and I stole
It's
it
just
from
the funniest
I stole it
part,
from
yeah.
Tracy Morgan on Saturday Night Live. But it's like they just keep showing trailers and previews,
Yeah.
and everybody in the theater's getting pissed off.
Yeah.
And Tracy Morgan stands up and he just goes, "Yeah, more previews!" and starts clapping and cheering.
Yeah, more previews. Yeah, and then every once in a while you get the red band. You're like, "What did I step into?"
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. I'm prepared for red band right now. I've had that happen.
I
Does
can
that
see
mean
too.
rated R?
Yeah, it's like so red band. You have your green band trailers, which is that you actually get the MPAA when you get a rating. Will send you like a header to put in front of your trailer. So when you submit it to like studios,
Your trailer
and
even
stuff, or to
needs to
film
be
theaters.
approved by
Yeah.
rating
So that way
agency.
they it's been approved. If you can submit it and get it rated as like an adult trailer, so they'll give you what's called a red band trailer, which is literally red, and it says this has been rated R usually, and it can include violence.
the
I
F
think
word at least
the
once.
F word, a little bit of nudity, and that's basically like a compressed version of an R-rated film.
Okay.
So whenever that comes up, though, you never really know what you're in for. Usually, you get that with like hard R type films or something. Like if you go see like a R-rated scary movie or something, you'll
Best
get
kind
that.
of films.
Yeah,
But I still get there early because I like seeing the trailers on the big screen. It still
I do
gives
too.
me a thrill, like
Yeah.
the Dune.
I enjoy it. Yeah, we got there like a little bit early because we were going to go see a different showing, and then that was basically sold out. So we went and saw the one after that, and we picked this one. So like we were in the Cine Capri, which is a great theater. It's really big and lots of good audio. Big doesn't mean great, but it's just really good quality audio and everything. And so we picked these seats off to the side, and it was like pretty much the only twos that were available were off to the side. So we picked the closest two we could, and there was somebody that took the seat right next to where I was at, and the movie started, and it was like, oh, and I was like, oh, they're not going to show up. Both seats are empty. I was like, it's nice. I can just scoot over, just it's empty. And then like right around the moment where the little girl sees the guy in the window, I see this husky dude just walking up the stairs. It's like, no, I know this. He's gonna come sit down. Sure enough, he just sat down.
It's like when you're on a
sits
plane
down,
and
yeah.
the whole plane is packed except for the seat
Actually,
next to you.
yeah.
And
And
it's
you
like
get that
nobody,
door
they
shut,
shut
you're
the
like,
door.
oh, thank you.
And then they just open it slightly and one person
Absolutely, yeah, no.
Comes out of the bathroom.
Yeah.
It's like you couldn't have gone to the bathroom outside the plane, but yeah.
Which is funny because I'm totally that guy at the movie theater.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, you're just walking in when the movie's already basically started. So I try not to be that guy. It's awkward. I know this. It's like in a packed theater, you never know who you're going to get stuck next to. The guy did the nice thing of like when he sat down, he kind of, he was polite. He didn't make a bunch of noise. At the end of the movie, though, he got super chatty. He was like asking me like, oh, what happened at the beginning of the movie? And I was like trying to explain to him, which I'm in the middle of being like, that was kind of a sad ending. But anyway, yeah.
You should have said, oh, when it starts off, James Bond is a robot
Yeah,
and he's
could've
recounting this
just made
tale
up-
of the time that he had a
just
kid.
Made up something that entirely changes the story. It actually started off, this was in the Star Wars universe.
That was
Wait,
a
what?
clone of James
Yeah,
Bond.
exactly, yeah.
But now I'm curious. Did you go to Harkins or AMC?
Yeah, Harkins.
Do they not
101.
have recliner seats?
They do, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they have
It
really
was
nice.
still tighter. So I haven't been in forever.
The Harkins ones are, I don't know what you're asking. Sorry. They're recliners. They're pretty good distance apart, but you can like get right up on it. Yeah, there's an armrest between the two, but it's not a big armrest. It's kind of what I mean. A small little one with a cup, and that can actually go up and down even if you wanted to just combine seats. That's
what you should have done when he sat down, was lift up that little armrest.
As I see him going there, just lift it up and just nod my head without even looking at him, just like, yeah, baby. Oh, that's funny. The worst is when you get, I love reserved seats, but almost inevitably, if you go to a lot of them, you're going to run into the situation where somebody is sitting in the wrong seats. And then that's that awkward moment of like, are they going to be jerks about this? Should I be a jerk about this? Should I find another seat? But then there's somebody else that might want that seat. And it creates this whole dichotomy. So it's like one time that happened, I was going to a theater and they didn't speak English. So I'm like, first of all, I don't know why you're in this English film, but I was like, these are the wrong seats. And then he was like, ¿Qué? What's that? And I was like, oh no. I was like, no, aquí. Like I was trying to be nice, but yeah. And the movie had already started. So
I think the etiquette is if it's, not full, sit wherever the hell you want. But yeah, if that's a packed theater, like.
Well, they're reserved seats, so it's
I feel like what Dave said. If it wasn't full and there was plenty of seating, I would just sit somewhere else.
I agree. Yeah,
if it's packed, it's like no ticket.
Man, I'm a jerk. Give me what I paid for. Just kidding.
I still want my center. Yeah, at least somewhere in the center.
So we'll make this the last question, then we can kind of wrap things up here. What are your hopes and expectations for future Bond films?
Not to use the agent they introduced this time.
Okay.
If that's their plan, they should have done a better job.
Okay.
That's it.
No, I want to. Yeah, I want a continuation of this same universe just without James Bond. But like I said, going into this one again, I'm never like, how time they did another James Bond movie. Yeah. I'm way more interested in other films. But when they do come out, I'm excited for them. Yeah. Same with Mission Impossible. Never thought
who would be a good new Bond.
I don't know. There's a lot of different people that thrown out there. I haven't thought of
one more thing I want to talk about after this, but that's a good one. Who would be the good?
I've thought all about it. I mean, somebody said Idris Elba, which I don't think he'd be awful.
That could be, yeah. I can see that.
He's more of a as hard as it is to say. I don't think of him as like a. Maybe it's just me. I don't think of him as like that. Like, Idris Elba. Like he's not like that swoop.
Well, you see his more British films.
He's very strong. He's definitely got that intensity of like strength. And then somebody else said, I think Benedict Cumberbatch, which he's a bit too like girly man.
They're just going off him being British. He's British, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're always British actors for the most part. So
he's perfect for Sherlock Holmes, but not James
We had
Bond.
A Scottish one at one point.
I don't know who I'd want it to be, but I think that they'll probably just go with Chris Pratt.
It can't be Chris. Yeah, I don't know. Part of me weirdly was like, what's his name? I can't think of it. He's way too young though. Spider-Man.
Oh,
Tobey Maguire.
No, the current Spider-Man.
Garfield.
No, the other one.
I can't think of his name.
Narrowing it down.
He got to the current generation.
No, the new one.
After Garfield, the kid. I can't think of his name.
Tom Holland.
Yeah, but I'm like, he's way too young. He's not tall enough either.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, he's gonna be one of those.
They could just do like when Bond was a kid, they could go back to his childhood.
He still looks 20 years old.
Yeah,
like he does not look like an old person.
I mean, I would have said not what's his name. I can't think of his name right now. From Batman, Christian Bale.
Oh, that could
I would have said Christian Bale, but he was already Batman, and he's kind of getting up in years. I don't know if he's wanting to do those types of films.
Yeah, he's more character actor.
Yeah, he's more big character actor, so I don't know if he'd be good for something like that. But then there's also plenty of I think you're just looking at the guys from Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I just kind of look at what people are saying. I think they don't have a name for this. Isn't that the guy that played Bucky, Winter Soldier?
No, that's
John.
He played Rob Stark.
Rob Stark.
Oh, that's Madison.
Okay, you could fill the role. Looks
like he's an awesome actor. No, even though he already did Man from U.N.C.L.E. I don't know if you've seen that Guy Ritchie reboot of the TV show with, but Henry Cavill to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of people talking. He's an American actor though too, right? Henry Cavill's American. Is he British?
He's British?
Is he?
Yeah,
he's such a breath of fresh air. I liked Smallville a lot. Tom Welling. And Tom Welling just craps on Superman all the time. You know what I mean? It's like at least Henry Cavill appreciates what's been given to him.
But I loved Man from U.N.C.L.E., but it went nowhere.
Yeah, I thought it was an all right film. Anyway, what were we saying? Oh, Tom, what's the other? Not.
Oh.
Venom from Venom.
Oh.
Harding?
Tom Harding,
No way.
I don't know. I said the same thing about Daniel Craig, and a lot of people were
Everybody
questioning
hated
it.
that choice when they.
Yeah,
Oh man,
because
when he
he's
first
so
got
rough
cast, they
and
hated it.
yeah, he comes across as kind of too brisk and rough, and then he was great. And I think Tom Hardy's got the acting chops. I've seen him do some acting jobs and some
Oh,
acting
he's
roles.
phenomenal.
He is
dude.
phenomenal. So,
and he can become a completely different person in every.
I don't know if he would want it, but I feel like he could be a good one as well. I don't know.
This list has John Hamm on it.
John
No.
Hamm. No,
There's no way.
if he was younger, I'm with Kevin Smith on him playing Batman.
Yeah, if he was younger.
Yeah, I agree.
But my other closing one was, what'd you think of this theme song? Because they're always pretty.
I thought it was. I was waiting for it to really kick into high gear. Like that's one of the things I loved about the Skyfall theme song. That was my favorite one, I think, so far.
Who was that?
Other than that was Adele.
Adele.
Yeah, this one's
and then
Billie
Alicia Keys
Eilish.
did.
I think so. Yeah, did the one. Did she do Spectre? I don't know.
I don't know. And then Chris Cornell one was really good.
It wasn't bad. It was good, especially for a James Bond theme goes.
Yeah, I don't listen to Billie Eilish at all, but I actually liked the song as it was playing. That was the first time I heard it too.
I got you. Yeah, same here. I just thought it. I was waiting for that big moment where it kicked into high gear, and maybe they made it slow on purpose because it kind of fits the more somber tone of this film. But like Skyfall was like it builds, and then she's that big octave shift like close to the end. Like, the Skyfall. It's like, and then like the first one with Casino Royale was like rock. This one was just kind of, it sat there and it was nice, and it definitely told a good like interesting story. It didn't feel like there's some songs you hear where it's like, and then you talk to me and there's no time to die, and you're like, wait, what? What? Right. You're just saying it because you have to have the name in it. This one didn't feel that way. It felt like the No Time to Die idea fit. It didn't feel the song.
Timeless though.
But it didn't feel timeless.
I do want to say I love that they still do the intro credits. I think it's it's awesome. It's a James Bond thing. Keep doing it forever. Don't lose that little part of it. It's a gamble to make an audience sit through a 3-minute song.
It is, yeah. You got to really make it interesting. Yeah. And I thought they did. I thought it was cool.
Well, I think the way to do that is to make it a timeless song, and I don't think that doesn't come across to me as something people are going to listen to in 20 years.
Yeah. The whole film. And that's one of the last things that I said.
They all can't be Duran.
It's one of the reasons why. It's one of the reasons I rated it so low. Is I don't think I'll ever want to rewatch this. There's just nothing about it. Maybe the first half of the film, but I'm not going to get anything from rewatching it. I get stuff from rewatching Skyfall. I get things from rewatching.
Like I said, there were some scenes I really look forward to watching.
I'm just going to rewatch and be like, oh yeah, that guy's about to die.
The only James Bond theme song
and die sadly.
I still listen to now is "Live and Let Die."
Oh, "Live and Let Die" is
Paul
great.
McCartney.
Yeah.
Paul McCartney. I like the Aha and Duran Duran, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. I like "Live and Let Die." Adele's "Skyfall" is probably a great one, and then was it Audio Slave that did the Casino Royale one? I think
it was just Cornell, but maybe I'm wrong.
So I guess if we take all the James Bond films and it's like how many songs are still listened to today, it's not very many.
No.
So maybe they didn't make a mistake, and I'm just being too critical.
Maybe. I don't know. I agree. I think it's a good thing to talk about, though. Yeah. So there's value in it. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for listening to the podcast. You guys want to give some ways to get connected?
Yeah. I've been Ross Caligiuri. Yeah. You can find me at dreamingintheshadows.com.
And David Deloso at thevasic.com.
Awesome. And for all of you listening, if you made it this far, we'd love to have you check out our website. If you want to get connected, reelreviewmedia.com. And then additionally, facebook.com/reelreviewmedia. Get connected with us there. We're always posting new episodes. We don't have a lot of additional content going out there right now. But yeah, you'll know when we get our latest episode. Feel free to subscribe to us on Apple, wherever you're listening, Spotify. Give us a like.
Instagram.
Yeah. And let us know.
Yeah, you have links on the site if you're interested in that kind of stuff.
Correct.
Check us out soon for Dune.
Yes, we would do. I think we're going to be doing that at the end of the month.
So
we will be back for that one. So stay tuned, and it's been real.